I know this is not my normal day for uploading videos, but today is a very exciting day. Flashback with me real quick. It was November 1st, 2018, and I started a little project. Back in 2018, you might remember this video. This time, I'm gonna talk about my journeys with NaNoWriMo. So let's get started. I'm not gonna talk about this story or the other story that I'm working on. I'm very excited to bring them out to you guys. I will let you guys know when they become closer to available. I started a little project called Deepwater, and I wrote 50,000 words of my nearly 80,000 word novel over the course of 2018's NaNoWriMo, hence the NaNoWriMo shirt. Even though I won the NaNoWriMo, either they weren't selling shirts at the time or I didn't realize they were selling shirts at the time, so I didn't buy a winner NaNoWriMo shirt that year. But this is the 2021 NaNoWriMo winner shirt, which I did win and bought the shirt. So I may as well wear this one instead. But yeah, so I won NaNoWriMo by writing 50,000 words over the course of November in 2018. And that was in fact this book called Deepwater that I am now releasing today. This is the weirdest thing and the coolest thing I think I've honestly ever done. Ever since I was 16, it's kind of been this weird dream of mine to actually write an original story that I could publish. Back when I was 16, I started writing fan fiction and really started to hone my craft in writing. I was not a good writer at the time. I was a terrible writer at the time, but I enjoyed doing it. I had fun coming up with stories, and throughout the course of the rest of my high school life, I did come up with a few stories that will eventually see the light of day. Maybe, eventually. Still working on that. But in 2018, I decided to try my hand at contemporary romance. I had gotten into romance stories when I was about 13 years old. Shh, don't tell my parents. It's fine, my mom already knows. I started reading romance stories when I was 13 years old. My best friend, Nikki, and I would sneakily buy romance novels, and we would share them and read them. We'd correct the spines where the spicy scenes were at so we could enjoy those as well on demand and know exactly where to find them. But I got back into romance, I would say 2016, 2017, and then decided to try and write romance. The idea for Deepwater was actually inspired by one of those choose your own adventure games. I was playing a choose your own adventure game, kind of got frustrated because you couldn't do any of the really fun stuff without spending real money, and that really irritated me. It was like they were guiding me through a story, not choosing my own, because I couldn't go any side adventures or anything like that without spending real money, and it was just kind of annoying. Plus, I felt like the story was just not that great, and I was thinking of a better story, or what I thought was a better story. So Deepwater, the idea, was born. Originally, it was supposed to be set on an Alaskan cruise, but I've never been on an Alaskan cruise, but I have been on 2 Caribbean cruises. Therefore, I decided to set it in the Caribbean. Fun fact, it is actually the same route that we took, almost exactly the same route that we took when I was 13 on the second Caribbean cruise that I took on a ship called the Sea Princess. So I think it still sails, but the Sea Princess doesn't belong to Princess Cruises anymore. It now is a whole different ship. I can't remember the name of it anymore. I only took out one stop because Princess Cruises actually owns an island in the Bahamas, which is one of the places we stopped, which I wasn't making this a Princess Cruise Line thing, so I decided to just negate that whole stop altogether and just put another day at sea. So it's filled with a lot of things that I actually did on that cruise, except for the skydiving that I didn't do until I was 30. We all know how 2016 went. I turned 30, jumped out of an airplane, quit my job, went to real estate school. So, but yeah, so the skydiving scene is more based on what happened when I was 30, but climbing up a waterfall, going to see Mayan ruins, peeing in a little shower pod thing right outside the pool. 100% things I did when I was 13. Are you interested in reading my book yet? I ended up shelving that project because writing a book, writing a novel just seemed way too just exhausting of an idea until NaNoWriMo 2021. And I returned back to the idea of doing contemporary romance. So after I finished the first draft of that book, which still hasn't seen the light of day, because I want to completely redo it, but that's a different story for a different day, I decided to finally finish Deepwater. So I wrote like the majority of it in 2018 and then wrote the rest of it like 2 years later, 3 years later, really. I wrote the rest of it last year. In 2022, I wrote the last of it. which, yeah, like I said, is like so long ago. There was quite a difference between when I started it and when I ended it. My editor told me that she had no idea that it was written at 2 different times. Luckily, when I went through and read what I had already written, added the things in that I needed to add in. There's a lot of stuff that I skipped because a lot of it was me still having to do a lot of research and like having to jog my memory on stuff. It was a really rough year of my life, the year 2000, so there's also a lot of fuzziness because PTSD does that to you. So there were also things that I just had to look up on YouTube to kind of remind myself of, or make sure that I understood that, yeah, this is really how this was, or yes, this is really what happens here, or this is really what this looked like. There were some specifics that I needed to remember. And I knew that doing that during a time frame where I had to write 50,000 words over the course of 30 days just wasn't gonna work. So a lot of times if I felt like I needed to do extra research, I just was like, skip and then move on. So I went back through, after I decided to finish it, I went back through and added in the things I needed to do, I needed to add in, and I edited some things at that point as well that I had already written. And then I let it sit, and then I went through it again, and was able to make it a lot more cohesive. There were a couple of mistakes that were found over the course of my drafts, but I was able to eventually figure out a way to, by the time it got to my final editor, we'll get there, she didn't even recognize that it was written at 2 different times. So I finished my first draft, and then I finished my second draft, and then I had my mom read it, which you'd think is weird because it's spicy, so you'd be like, why are you letting your mom read spicy scenes that you've written? Well, my mom and I have a very open relationship when it comes to stuff like that, so it doesn't bother me at all. Doesn't bother me even in the slightest. She gave me some pointers, some things that she found that were really great, and some things that she thought I needed to work on. But she even said, it's a fantastic book. And she says, and I'm not even just saying that because you're my daughter, like I don't read that fast. You know I don't read that fast, and I read it in like 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, we're both the same. We don't read very fast. The fastest I've ever read is when I listen to audiobooks, and that's only just because somebody else is reading it, and I just get to listen while I do other things. I'm like my mother in a lot of ways. I don't read fast. Anyway, then I went through and did a 3rd draft, and then I sent it to an editor earlier this year. The same editor that a friend of mine, a very close personal friend of mine, you might know the name, I've said it many times, Hurry Cosmo. The same editor that they use, I used that editor. Let's just say neither one of us are going to use that editor ever again. So this editor basically just kept not prioritizing my project at all. And I was gonna be paying this guy $400 to edit my book. Now, mind you, that's actually pretty inexpensive when it comes to editors. Trust me. But I was gonna be paying this guy $400 to edit my book, and never once did he ever prioritize my book. And he kept, like, he was radio silent until I emailed him being like, hey, what's up? He'd be like, oh, sorry, this thing that I had to focus on was another thing. Oh, this other thing. By a certain point, I was finally done with him, and I was like, okay, once I get my edit back from him, then I'll be done with him and move on and try to find a different editor from here on out. He then decided to email me and say, hey, I don't want to edit your book. I didn't pay him a single dime, thank God, but I was devastated. So I threw out a video onto TikTok, hoping that BookTok could help me find a new editor very, very quickly. He kept my book hostage for 5 months. 5 solid months he kept my book hostage. I wanted to release this book in May, so it'd be a nice summer read. Well, now y'all can buy it for Christmas, okay? Anyway, so he kept my book hostage for 5 months, and finally I got it back. And so I decided to find a new editor. I found one pretty fast. She and I meshed really well. And honestly, she's the best editor I think I could have ever found, ever worked with. She's great. And she acts not only as an editor, but also as a beta reader. And honestly, I cannot wait to work with her again in the future. Absolutely adore her. She's fantastic. Love her to pieces. So thank you so much for editing my book. If you want to know her name, it is in the book, which I'll grab in a second to show to you. Yes, it is on my mantle, okay? I am very proud of this. So then I went through and did her edits, and then she got to read it one more time with just maybe a couple more edits here and there. And then finally we called it done. At some point, you have to just know when to call it done, because I could go through Deepwater like 600 more times and still find something to change. But at the end of the day, I went through so many edits, so much trouble, so much just disaster. And now it's here. It's finally here. And it's just bizarre to me that I did it, that I did this. I made it. Ready? Y'all, I made this. I made it. This is something I made. The words in this book are words that I wrote. I did this. So here it is, Deepwater. I'll read you my blurb real quick so you can decide whether or not it's something you'd be interested in. I love that my rap artist, who I also love, by the way, and cannot wait to work with him again in the future, but he did this. He made the secrets always come out. So here we go. Ready? Lori and her mother have never seen eye to eye about what completes a woman's life. Lori is a successful businesswoman, and her mother will only be proud of her if she gets married and has children. To escape family drama on a Caribbean cruise, she invites her best friend Ryan to come with her as her fiance. The only issue is Ryan is gay and has a thing for Lori's younger brother Derek. Not to mention, Lori is slowly falling for Justin, a bartender on the ship. Can she navigate the week developing a new real relationship with Justin while she maintains a fake one with Ryan? Ryan was happy to join Lori on her voyage around the Caribbean when he finds out that the guy he'd been secretly crushing on for years is not only getting a divorce, but may not be as straight as Ryan has been told. The waves start getting rocky. Can Ryan start a relationship with Derek while also making sure he doesn't turn everything upside down by revealing everyone's secrets? So that's the blurb for Deepwater. I do want to make you aware at the start of the book there are some content warnings, so please be aware of those. I'll go ahead and name them here now. Content warnings being outed without consent, a toxic relationship with a parent, mentions of body size, non-main character divorce, non-main character pregnancy. So that's what Deepwater is about, and the content warnings. So please, please, please take care of yourself if any of those things are triggering for you. But yeah. I also want to make it very clear that I always want to write about plus size women getting their love stories, and plus size women loving themselves and loving their bodies, or at least on a great journey to loving themselves and loving their bodies. People come in all shapes and sizes, and guess what? Women like me, large-bodied women, deserve our love stories too. So if for whatever reason you are a fat phobic asshole, don't read it. Because Lori is a wonderful size 18, 200-pound, incredibly strong, wonderful woman who loves herself, loves her body, and falls in love with a hot Australian. Yes, that's a dream of mine, to fall in love with a hot Australian. Let it go. So if you're at all interested in this book, it is released today, November 7th, 2023. Finally, 5 months after I wanted to release it. But it's here, everyone. So you can click the link tree below. You can get it off of Amazon, but if you don't want to give Amazon money, you can also buy it from Barnes & Noble. If you buy from Barnes & Noble, you're not giving Amazon any money. You're only giving money to Barnes & Noble and Ingram Spark, so you can buy it from there. Otherwise, if you want a signed copy, let me know, and we'll work out something where I can send you a signed copy if you pay me directly. If you buy a signed copy directly from me, there may or may not be presents that come with the book, so just keep that in mind. But here it is. And right here is where it's gonna live. I am so proud of myself. I cannot believe I did this. I can't believe I did this. I did it. I did something I never thought I would actually do. It felt just too overwhelming. It felt like too much. And it felt like too much, but it wasn't. It wasn't too much. Yes, it took me years to actually release it. But now that I know what it takes, watch out, world. I'm an author now. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm so happy.